Just let me know when I can start. Okay, that looks like my presentation. Okay. Okay, I'm just counting how many people we have. 1, 2, 3, 1,000. Okay, that's good. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Yash. This is my second time in Yash. I was here for Max Code last year, and now this is my first time at Codecamp. It's pretty cool to see so many people that want to learn new things. I spent the past 2 days teaching test-driven development to a few familiar faces that I see here. And one of the things that came out of the test-driven development class that I was doing had nothing to do with test-driven development. So a lot of questions came up about, okay, that's all good and great, but how do we convince our management to do that stuff? Because we think it's a good idea, but how do you sell refactoring? How do you get people to do that stuff? So this talk is really about what do we do as experts? Can we use our expertise to create leadership? You'll be able to find a lot of this information on my blog at 5wise.com, or if you have questions after the conference, you can just contact me on Twitter. A little bit about where this is coming from. I've been in the software industry for about 20 years. I started out in Visual Basic, if you remember that. Still one of my favorite languages. I know I'm not supposed to say that. And I wrote a book called The Art of Unit Testing. And it was successful, and I was speaking about it at conferences, and everyone kept asking the same questions, even 10 years later. People were still learning the basics. They weren't actually moving towards something after that. They were still struggling to even adopt those basic things. So I wrote a book called Elastic Leadership, which is kind of the topic of this, which is all about what is the glue that holds things together. What do we do when we want to move people in a specific direction? And there's another talk I'm going to do later, which is about branching, and it's all about enterprise DevOps, so watch out for that as well. So I just want to make it clear, okay? Before we start, the likelihood of this talk making any difference in your life is very, very small, okay? I don't want to discourage you, but when you go to a conference and you learn all these new skills, and you're like, yo, that's cool, I want to give that a try, or that's amazing, I want to learn that stuff, that's great. And then you go back to your job, and you just go back to doing things the way you've always done them. For some reason, in a conference, you live like in a bubble. There's all this potential stuff, and then you get to work, and your boss tells you, okay, that's great, everything you just told me is great. However, we have a deadline, so why don't you go back to writing that ASP.NET page, and forget about Angular or whatever. We don't have time for that stuff. Just maintain that thing. So this is the thing that bothers me the most. How do we transfer what's in our head to actual reality? How do we change the reality around us? Which leads me to my next question. How many people here are leaders? I know it sounds like a trick question, but I'll make it a bit clear. How many people here are appointed leaders, team leads, managers? Raise your hand if you are one of those people. Okay, how many people here are not? I'm just making sure everyone is alive. Okay, how many people here are experts in something? For example, architects, expert in a database-related technology, expert in something in their team. Is anyone here like this? Nope. Everyone is like, I don't know anything. Does anyone here know something slightly better than people around them? Does anyone here care about something slightly more than people around them? Right? Okay. Just keep raising it. Just whatever. Here is a different question. Maybe this will jog your memory. How many people here are bottlenecks? Okay, I'll explain what a bottleneck is. If you are the only person that everyone has to wait for to make something happen in the team, like you're the person in charge of the build, you're the person in charge of merging the code into the branches, you're the person that has to make a decision about the architecture, how many people here are some kind of bottleneck that everyone has to kind of wait for before something can happen? Is anyone here like this? How many people here know someone like that in their team? Like they have that person works in the basement and everyone is afraid to talk to because if that person, leaves tomorrow, God forsake us, this company is doomed. Another word for this is a bus factor, okay? For those of you who don't know, a bus factor is an amazing technical term. You can define it by how many people have to get hit by a bus for the team to stop working, okay? So in many teams, we have a bus factor of 1 in many locations, okay? The one person who knows how to run the build successfully, the one person who knows how to deploy, the one person who has permission to approve a pull request, etc., etc., etc. So if you're a bottleneck, my claim is that you are potentially also a leader. However, many of us like to just not do anything with the fact that we're bottlenecks. We just live our lives. Technically, we could use it either for evil or for good. You might have noticed that sometimes people use being a bus factor for evil, like not sharing knowledge, keeping it's called keeping your position at work so that you're always valuable to the company. Some people can use their expertise to teach other people and grow the skills of people around them. But most people, at least that I see, they just are. They just exist as bottlenecks. They don't push it this way, they don't push it that way. They just exist. They don't use their power for either evil or good. They just stand there and stop things and then move them along without realizing that the reality that they live in can actually be changed. Not everyone is in love with being in that position, but a lot of times we think that it's just the way things are. It's just the way things have to be. But if I told you that as a leader, as an expert, as an architect, as a scrum master, as a database specialist, you have the ability to lead people, what does that even mean? What is the role of a leader? So if I have been assigned to be a tech lead at some point, how do I measure my success as a tech lead? How do I know that I'm doing a good job? So some people will say, oh, you know what, we have to deliver things early, high quality, and that's all good. But how do I know that I'm doing my job as a leader? Because technically, we can do that regardless of leadership. We just need to have the right practices. So is it about teaching the practices? What does it actually mean? So here's how I think about leadership. Your role as a leader is to make yourself unneeded. Sounds weird, maybe? To make people not need you. So if I'm an architect, my primary role is to make myself not needed as an architect. Does that make any sense? So maybe my role is to create people who think like me so they don't have to ask me questions. My role is to make myself so unneeded that I don't actually have to be in the room for people to continue working, to remove myself as a bus factor. So if I have an assigned role as an expert in a specific team, if I have an assigned role which is maybe not official, but everyone knows that I'm the person to go to about something, then by definition, I'm already a bottleneck. The only thing I can do about it is try to remove myself as a bottleneck as much as possible. And we all know those things. We want to talk about agile development and all that stuff, but really it's all about the ability for something to flow from one side to the other, for a team to be able to be self-organizing. And when we talk about agile development and we talk about self-organizing teams, what is that? Everyone talks about it. No one has seen one in real life. Most teams that I see are not self-organizing, but I had the opportunity to work in a few of them. So a self-organizing team is a team that can make its own decisions. It's a team that doesn't require anyone outside to be a bottleneck to make the decisions for the team. They can just move on. So if we're trying to create a self-organizing team, then we have to remove ourselves and any bottlenecks inside the team so that the team can move on. So our job is to grow the team around us to have the skills so they can solve their own problems. Okay? So if I'm an architect, my job is to grow everyone to be an architect. If I'm a database person, my job is to grow the skills of people around databases. If I'm a front-end developer and I'm the expert at front end, my job is to make sure I'm not the only expert at front end, but there are more like me, so that I don't have to make all the decisions for everyone. Now, the scariest part about teaching people your skills is that then they have your skills. And then, of course, the question I get asked a lot, well, what's going to happen to me if they can just do everything without me? And what I've noticed, and what you'll notice as well, is that when you are able to grow the skills of people around you, you actually become much more valuable to the organization. Because now you're affecting many more things than just your own code, than just the things that you work on. You're affecting the things that a lot of people around you are working on. And those people, with their new skills, can then work on other projects as well. So you're affecting more than a single project. Your success factor is much higher. And if I'm a manager and I have a person that I know, I can take that person and put them in this team, and then the team has new skills, and then I take that person and I put them in this team, and now that team has new skills. You know what? I think that person is going to get paid a little bit more than other people as well. Because that person now is not only an expert about something, they're also a coach about something. So that person can help me make the company move faster. So, the first reason why we want to grow people, which has nothing to do with us personally, it's company-related risk. The more bust factors you have, the more risky the company, the more danger your company is in. So I was working at a large insurance company, and they had a consultant who worked there for about 7 years, and that person was working on the build. They had all the build in their head. Every month, they would have a week of build and deployment and release. And everyone, was like, okay, that's not my job, that's his job, he's going to do that stuff. And one day, he decided, you know what, he wanted to do something else. And after he quit, the week came to do a release, and the company realized they are not able to release the product. They just are not able. They don't have the skill in the company because there was so much in his head that was not either documented, he didn't coach anyone about it. And even if he tried, people would tell him, no, but I'm working on my stuff, why are you bothering me with your stuff, that you're here and I'm here? So there was no push from the company to coach other people, etc. So they had to bring him in as an outside consultant, pay him 3 times more for a month. They put him in a table like here. They put a microphone, they put a camera, they recorded his screen and said, okay, do a release. And they recorded every action that he did for that week, with 2 people sitting on both his sides, looking at him like, they're from the Kremlin. Like, okay, what are you doing now? Interesting. So the only thing that was missing was like if they were, they were copying all his passwords, etc. The only thing that was missing is they could read his mind. So they kept asking him questions. So it took about 2 months to do the next release after that, alone, just to increase that skill. How much money did the company lose just by having that risk? The next one is, a good reason for me as a leader. If I am an expert at something, the thing I usually hate the most is to help people with things I already know that are very simple for me and are very difficult for them. Because it's boring, because I already know how to do that stuff. I don't learn anything new. I just waste most of my time doing things that I already know, very small things, but there are a lot of them because everyone knows that I'm the person to go to. And so instead of spending my time on learning new skills, on thinking at a higher level, I'm spending my time fixing issues for other people, instead of teaching them how to fix their own issues. So I'll get more time to actually do the things that I wish I could do. So a lot of leaders usually say, I wish I had more time to code again. I never have time because I'm always in meetings. I never have time because I have to do this. But the truth is, you can actually make yourself more time by actually learning how to coach and to delegate some of the responsibilities so that other people can take over some of the burden. But it's so easy for us as leaders to protect the team because you're afraid that if the team has the freedom to just choose and do whatever they need to do without you, they'll screw it up. Right? So when we're coaching people, we also need the ability to make mistakes. So we'll talk about when can you make mistakes. But if we are able to give the team the ability to do their own stuff, that team is more effective. They don't need me, which means they can make decisions at the team level, and they can just move ahead. Sometimes they just make decisions at the personal level, and they can move ahead. Think about this. If, whenever I talk about this, everyone agrees, yes, that's a great idea. Let's grow the team. But not in my team. I mean, technically, I agree with you, Roy. Specifically in my team, there's a couple of people I'm not so sure about. There's one person, I don't think that person is able to even learn what I know. Or there's one person who's so negative, I don't think they will ever accept anything that I have to say. Or there's one person who I just dislike. There's one person who smells bad. There's one person who doesn't work well with others, whatever. So if I had a better team, maybe in the next team, I'm going to give this a try. And this will never happen. You will never get the perfect team. People are too variable. You will always have variations between the skills of people. So maybe instead of that, maybe we should accept that we cannot get the best team. Maybe our job is to create the team that we wish we had. Maybe that's how I can define my role as well. So if I want a great team, I'll take the team I have and I'll turn them into the team I wish I had. That's difficult. That's scary. Because now my job is not just to manage statuses of things, it's like actually taking the people in my team and working with them, sometimes one-on-one, and getting them into this thing, and maybe even asking them to do something that nobody's ever asked them to do. I want you to learn new skills. Well, no, I'm doing iOS, well, leave me alone. No, but I want you to learn it. Well, no, leave me alone, I don't want to do this. What do we do in those situations? Because that's the scary part. The scary part is getting people out of their comfort zone, getting ourselves out of our comfort zone, and growing people to the team we wish we had. Sorry, what? Why not hire an expert? First of all, that's a great question. Second, I'll answer questions at the end of the keynote. But the idea is that, what if I could create a team of team leaders? Thank you. I'm definitely out of my comfort zone now, I agree. But it's really important because we only have 30 minutes. I want to make sure we go through all the information. I will be available after to talk about questions, okay? But what if we could create a team of team leaders? If we had a team of team leaders in the company, can we agree that would be a self-organizing team? But why is it a self-organizing team if we have a team of team leads in our company? One of the reasons is because team leads have one skill a lot of times that people in their team don't have. They know what to do when they don't know what to do. Okay? So they know how to navigate unknown territory because for any given situation, they kind of know what is the right thing to do in that situation. So if I want to grow the skills of people in my team, one of the skills I want to teach them is, what do you do when you don't know what to do? So it sounds really a bit recursive, but that is a missing skill for a self-organizing team, because the moment that I'm out of my skill level, I'll go directly to my manager or to the expert in my team and just ask them, okay, what do I do now? And then we're back into the bus factor. So what I want to teach them is how to think in that specific way. Now, there's a great book by Jerry Weinberg called Managing Teams Congruently. Congruently technically means everything is in flow, everything works together. By the way, how long do we have here? Oh, only 10 minutes, is that true? Okay. So leadership done right is a tough job. Leadership done right is a tough job, which means that if you're doing it right, it's supposed to be difficult. But a lot of leaders like to take the money, because you get paid more as a leader, like to take the money but not do all the hard parts. And the hard parts are exactly that, of working with people, working one-on-one, trying to understand what is the thing that will take the team to the next level. So, how do we grow the skills of our team? How do we learn new skills? If we look inwards and we see how do we learn new skills, there's again a different book by the same author, Jerry Weinberg. called Becoming a Technical Leader. And in that book, he was plotting his skill level at a game called Flipper, or pinball. You know that game? You have a ball running, and then you have to hit, and it doesn't fall between. Everyone knows that? Okay, that's just making sure. Thank you. So, in that, over the years, he was plotting his progress, and you could see that he was getting better and better as time went by. But when you zoom in, when you actually try to look at a high resolution, you can see that the learning was not linear. There were periods of fast growth, fast skill level earning, and there were periods of very, very slow skill learning. And he realized that the periods of fast growth happened when he learned something new about the game, when he learned about how to play the game differently. So he was thinking about, oh, you know what? If I have more than a single ball in the game at the same time, I can get double points for every hit. So now he had to strategize differently and aim for different things in the game. So he became much better. Every time he learned a new paradigm shift in the way the game works. When you zoom even more, before he got better, he actually got worse. And we probably all know this. To learn a new skill, like playing in a different strategy in that pinball game, he had to stop doing the old way. He had to forget the old way and learn a new way. So at the beginning, he was pretty bad, again, and then he became much better. And if we think about this, we have the same problem whenever we learn, for example, a new programming language. When you learn a new programming language, just the hello world is a very difficult task. If you do it in your old language, no problem. So when I was learning, when I was moving from C#, I wanted to learn stuff in Ruby. How do you learn Ruby? How easy is it? How difficult is it? You learn a new language. It was very difficult at the beginning. But there was something more. When you learn a new skill, you also feel very uncomfortable. It feels very, very frustrating. When I'm looking at this chart from his book, it actually took me somewhere else, not from the high-tech world. I was thinking about my 3 kids. I have 3 boys. And I was looking at that and was like, that looks very familiar because, here is my wife and me right here with no kids. Always complaining we don't have enough time. And, we're both working full-time jobs. And then our first child was born. And immediately life became worse, okay? I mean, we love him, but life became worse. For a few good months, life was very, very difficult because we had to learn new skills about this new human being living in our house, eating our food, not sleeping at all, and technically just making a big mess, just making messes around, and you have to learn the diaper thing, and oh God. It's like legacy code, but it lives in your house, okay? So, but we were so tired, and people had to bring food to our house. We were like refugees. Oh, thank you for bringing food. Like, oh, thank you. Sleep when he sleeps, all that stuff. You learn these skills, and after a few months, you become better. Life begins to be maybe a bit more steady. You go out of the house for a bit as well. You stare at the sun. You realize there's a sun outside, right? And after, let's say, 6 months to a year, you come out and you look back and you realize how much you've learned. You've actually changed as a person. If you look back at the time we didn't have kids, you were like, how did we ever complain we don't have enough time? That doesn't make any sense right now because we're doing everything we did plus taking care of a human being. So that was good for a couple of years. And then our second child was born. And immediately, life was different and more difficult because 2 children is a completely different skill than 1 child. Because when you have 2 parents and you have 1 child, 1 parent can go out while the other stays with the child. When you have 2 kids, there's a one-on-one, guard like basketball. So how do you manage? So would 1 person go out and do shopping and then 1 person stays at home alone with 2 children? Scary as hell for the first few weeks, right? You learn these skills. It's really, really, it's a completely different set of challenges. For example, you try to get them to sleep at night, but they wake each other up, right? You just get the one to sleep, and then the other goes, and then, oh, okay. So what do we do when we have a chain reaction like this? How do we handle that? Okay, I know, you do this, and you do this, and you put on the TV, and we have a release, right? That's kind of what happens. And, of course, life became easier after a while. But when we were, after the second child, we look back at the time we only had one child, and we're like, how was one child so difficult? Do you remember how tired we were? And now we're doing stuff with two children. Like, if you left me alone with one child today, that's like I don't have kids at all. It's like, yeah, that's technically they take care of themselves. It's like, okay, one child, it's so easy. So when our third child was born, life became different again, because the skills with 3 kids are completely different. So we had to learn how to get the other 2 children to take care of their new brother. Okay? Oh, he fell. Pick him up. He's bleeding. Put a Band-Aid. Go get some food from the fridge, whatever. We basically learned how to create a self-organizing team. Think about that, okay? So life with 3 children is completely different than life with 2 and life with 1. And every dot here represents us as different people, different skill sets, and we look back and we're different people than we were with 2 kids. How did we ever think 2 kids was difficult? 1 child, don't even talk to me if you have 1 child. 1 child, you might as well, I don't know, live in a private jet, right? Your life is so easy. No kids? Who are you? What universe do we live in, right? So those skill levels, what they required is a jump into a ravine, that unknown, scary place where we actually take risks and we feel very much uncomfortable. But that uncomfortable means that we're learning new skills. It means that we're doing something that we've never done before. And those are the things that we look for when we grow a team. So if I want to grow the skills of people in my team, what I look for is a ravine to just push them into. Okay? So if I have a person who is an expert at something, but they're really bad at coaching people, that person's ravine could be learn how to coach people. Oh, I hate it, it's not in my job description. That's okay. We still need you to do it because it's important. And this is the uncomfortable place. This is the place that we're afraid of being as leaders, as experts. This is the place where we're afraid of what people will tell us when we ask them to do something that is different than their expectation of reality. But as leaders, I think it's our job to map out and plan those ravines for our team, and slowly, one by one, for each person, push them into a ravine, watch them climb out better. And then the next ravine, watch them climb out better than they were. So what we're looking for is people being uncomfortable. Okay? How do I know if a team is learning new skills? If I'm looking at a team and everyone is safe and happy, something is wrong. As a leader, I look at the team like, okay, everyone is safe and happy, everyone is really right there in their comfort zone, means nobody is learning a new skill. But if I want my team to grow new skills, it means they have to get out of their comfort zone, which means I'm looking for people being a bit frustrated. I'm looking for people being a bit maybe annoyed or, trying something and failing. I'm looking for that because that means that the team is actually in a healthy state of learning. That's where we want to be. Okay, cool. And of course we can have variations. This is really what it looked like. So real life you have small ups and downs, but the big downs are the ones that I'm talking about. If you learn a new framework, that's not a ravine. You're in your comfort zone. If you are doing something that feels a bit risky, that feels like this could challenge you in a way that makes you a bit uncomfortable, that is an example of a ravine. So to grow people, we need to be able to go through that stuff ourselves. Which means that if I'm going to ask you to jump into a ravine, I have to have gone through one as well. If I'm going to ask Dan here to do something that he's never done before, and I've never done it, when I ask it, it's going to look insincere, because I don't really know what he's going to go through. So we have to go through it ourselves before we ask our team to do it. So here's the thing. Growing teams is a huge ravine for leaders. Asking people to get out of their comfort zone is scary. It feels risky. It feels like it's not in your job description. It feels like, you know what? It's much easier for me to just keep things the way they are and kind of live with it for a while than to actually start challenging people. That's the scary part. So what I challenge you to do is to try that anyway because it's scary. And of course, you might say, Roy, all that's great, but we don't have time. In fact, how much time do we have for this talk? 2 hours? Okay. Let's finish in, I'm going to add just 10 minutes so that we can make sure that we go through the important stuff. Time. Okay, Roy, that's great. I want to grow the team. I want to do all that stuff. That's really important. But, you know, we got the project, we got the thing going. What are we going to do? I mean, I fully agree with you, but not in this project. Maybe in the next project. Maybe in the thing. Okay, sure. I agree. You probably don't have time to do it. You probably don't have time to ask people to make mistakes and learn from them and slowly learn. For example, if you want people to learn test-driven development, it's not just about sending them to a course. It's also about giving them time to slowly work through the new skills and slowly write new code that could take sometimes 5 times or even 10 times longer for the first few weeks, just as they learn the skills. Do we have time for that stuff? And the answer is usually no. So if we have on one side our ability, our desire to grow the team, and we have on another side the problem of time, this is what we have to face. So what I want to suggest is that there is a model that we can use so that we can move the team in the right direction and also handle the problem of time. And I call this the elastic leadership model. And in the model, we can describe a team as in one of 3 states. A team is either in survival mode. Okay, survival mode sounds like survival mode, right? You are constantly out of time. You're fixing fires all the time. You don't have time to learn new skills. You're already late fixing things you were late to do. You didn't even start the late things. So you are reacting instead of actually planning and doing things that you would like to do. So you don't have time to learn new skills. So survival mode is very dangerous because in survival mode, there is no way we can grow our team, which means we have to get out of survival mode. We have to move into learning mode, which is what a lot of the agile coaches talk about. Oh, you need to coach your team and grow them and all that stuff, all the good stuff that I said before. Learning mode is great for that. If you try to do that in survival mode, you're going to be in trouble, and your team is going to be in trouble. Because from the company perspective, you haven't actually, you are overcommitted, and now you're changing your commitments without actually telling anybody. What we want to do is we want to move them into self-organizing mode. That's the mode where they don't need you. That's the mode where you're not the bus factor, and the amount of bus factors in the team is so low that they can technically just move on their own. That's where we want to go, and we're usually right up there. So first of all, we have to recognize that we're there. We have to recognize because that is the first step to doing something about it, about moving away from there. So in survival mode, my style of leadership is very different than it is in the learning mode. And in learning mode, it's different than self-organizing mode. So that's why I call it elastic leadership, because to get out of each mode, to move between them, the style, the way we lead people, I believe needs to change. So for example, in survival mode, our main goal is create time for learning. Otherwise, we're never going to get out of it. How do we create time for learning? We re-establish commitments. You know, I have a whole slide deck and a whole course that I teach about that stuff. But technically, we set like a red line in the sand and we say in 30 days, whatever doesn't fit in the next 30 days, we are putting after and we are re-estimating that stuff with learning built in. Now, can you imagine going to management and saying, oh, you know what, I know we were already late on all these things, but let's block out 30 days, and after that we're going to re-estimate whatever is left to include learning built in? Does that sound like something you would like to do? Exactly. But maybe that's the reason we should do it. Because it's scary. Because it is the thing that will get us out of survival mode. That's where leadership becomes the tough part, is having those tough conversations, is having things that could be scary, that might even mean that your job feels a little bit at risk. But trust me when I tell you that a leader that does these conversations usually is a leader that the company trusts even more than they do people who just say yes to everything. The only thing that it is scary. In the learning phase, we want to challenge people to learn the new skills, like I said before. And in the self-organizing phase, we set goals, and we make sure that the team is moving towards them, but we don't tell the team how to do their job. The leadership style. Now, this is the controversial part. In a survival mode, we cannot be a coach, right? When the ship is sinking, the captain doesn't call a meeting. The captain gives orders, okay? So in survival mode, to get out of survival mode, every person does what they're good at. Okay? We don't have time for games in a way. But the reason we're doing this is because we know it's temporary, and we know that after the red line, we are going to change our leadership style into a coach/dictator. What does that mean? It means we can make mistakes, but there is a sand pit where the mistakes can only be this big, right? If a team comes to me and says, we have chosen not to use source control, I can tell them, incorrect. You have chosen to use source control. Give me 3 options of source control, okay? Because I know that that mistake is too big to fail. But we can set the boundaries of failure, and we can make sure that the team can live inside of them. And but if I try to be a coach in survival mode, I'm going to get the team in a big problem, right? If I go in a learning team and I use command and control leadership, like I'm in the military, okay, what have you done yesterday? What are you going to do today? Is anything stopping you? And the team maybe is even self-organizing. They're like, we don't need this. We already talked with each other. It's all good. You don't have to even ask us what the hell's going on. Just look at the goals and the targets and everything's good. If you treat people in self-organizing mode or in learning mode as if they're in survival mode, you're going to lose them. And if you treat people in survival mode as if they're in learning mode, you're also going to lose them, because what's going to happen is what happens in many companies. Everyone is running around like headless chickens because we're in survival mode, and then the Scrum Master or leader comes in, we are now going to be self-organizing. What do you think we should do? What experiment should we do? And I'm like, are you sure? Because there's a fire right there. You see the smoke? You want us to now do all this, or you want us to learn all that stuff, but your manager and your manager's manager came in yesterday and said, the project is going to die if we don't deliver that stuff tomorrow. So, are you sure you want to do that? And the answer is, I think so. And then, of course, nothing happens. So we have to understand why it doesn't happen. This is a model from elasticleadership.com if you want to take a look. And there's a manifesto as a leader. What do I believe in? I believe in challenging people over putting them in their comfort zone. I believe in changing the leadership style instead of having a single leadership style, no matter what the team is doing. And I believe in human interaction and understanding how people do their job and why do they do some things and why do they not do other things. All that stuff is connected. If we don't know that stuff, we don't know how to work with humans. We just know how to work with machines. If you have more questions, if you want to learn more, there's a book about it, apparently. There's a blog at 5wise.com. You can reach me on Twitter, send me an email. I'll be happy to answer any questions after Tariq's talk. Thank you very much, everybody. Good luck. Have fun.